Hello, everybody. Welcome to BeerSmith episode number 36. We've got Drew Beechum on today to talk about beer clubs. Have very few announcements today. Just wanted to mention again, BeerSmith 2, if you haven't tried it out. And also our website's the BeerSmith blog. There's about 150 articles on there. BeerSmith discussion forum at beersmith.com/forum. Lots of stuff available for you if you're just learning how to brew. And now, without further ado, I'm going to jump right into this week's episode. Today on the show, I have Drew Beechum, who's the author of the Everything Homebrew book. He's also an author for Beer Advocate and former president of the Maltose Falcons. Drew, it's great to have you on the show.
It's good to be on the show, Brad.
Drew's been on a couple times before. I'm trying to remember 2 or 3 times before, I think.
Twice before. And glad to have him back. And you were president of the Maltose Falcons, of course, which is one of the largest homebrewing clubs in the U.S. How did you get started really in the brewing club scene? It just kind of fell out of what I was doing as a homebrewer. Like, I kind of tripped into homebrewing after I'd been working on a project for a long time and had kind of forgotten what I used to do for fun. And realized I like to cook, I like beer, and so beer brewing was kind of a good thing. And I had done it once in college with a couple of friends of mine. And so I started doing it and went to the shop where I had got all my parts, and turns out that's what the Falcons are headquartered out of, is this one particular homebrew shop. And I kind of flirted around with the idea for a couple months of, homebrew club meeting, that kind of sounds fun. I go talk to some homebrewers. And then I just kind of showed up one day to one of the meetings, had a couple of bottles of beer that I was really, really proud of, and that if I had them today, I'd probably go, I'm not serving those to anybody. But at the time I was really, really proud of these bottles of beer, and just thought it'd be good to share it with people who apparently knew more about beer making than I did.
So how long had you been brewing at that time? How long before you actually joined your first club?
I think when I started in March of '99, and I think the first meeting I went to was June of '99.
So not very long, really.
No, I was that kind of precocious homebrewer. We've all seen that guy who they get started homebrewing, then they read everything they can get their hands on, and within 5 months, and so within 6 batches of beer, I was kegging and doing all grain.
Oh wow! Took me years to get there.
Well, you have to understand. It's ironic because at least part of it is driven by laziness. I hate bottling; it's too much work.
Yeah.
So that was the kegging. I can't use the laziness excuse to explain the all grain brewing though. So
what does the average homebrew club kind of offer to its members?
I would say the biggest thing is just the people in the club. You kind of have a chance when you're in a homebrew club to have a group of people who have the common interests that you do, right? These are going to be people that you can actually talk to, that at least for once, you can sit there and go, well, I mashed this thing at 152 because I wanted to do this, and I did Magnum for my hop edition because I wanted something nice and neutral, and they're not going to glaze over. You try that with your partner, your friends, or anybody else, and eventually they kind of go... So the nice thing with the homebrew club, at least, is that you have a group of people who are perfectly willing and happy to sit there and listen to you babble about beer for as long as you want. So what does a meeting look like? What kind of activities do you have, and how formal is it? Well, I think the one difference is every club is going to look a little different.
Right.
I've hung around a couple of clubs now, and I can kind of talk to this. The Falcons are incredibly formal and planned. You show up this Sunday, for instance, is our club meeting. Show up at the shop at 12. Everybody kind of hangs out for about a half hour. Hey man, how you doing? Here, have a beer. And then we call in. I actually run the first part of the meeting nowadays. I'm the Grand Hydrometer of the Falcons, which is the beer education officer. So I come up with a little commercial tasting and like a little tech demonstration. We do those, and then we start serving homebrew while conducting all the club business. Every time a homebrew is served, the homebrewer who made that beer stands up in front of everybody while somebody goes around and pours, and then they talk about the beer. They say, I made this with a 5-gallon batch with 10 pounds of 2-row, 2 pounds of this, I fermented like this.
And then people go, well, I get a little diacetyl. What'd you do for your yeast? Or, wow, this is really great. I never thought of combining these two flavors. And then that person shuffles off after they're done talking. Everybody's had their beer, and then it goes, okay, next piece of business. We break for lunch, and we do more beer drinking after lunch. And so the Falcons Club meetings can last from about 12:30 typically to about 4:30, 5 o'clock on a Sunday afternoon.
Wow. And how large is the Falcons? It's a pretty big club, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. I think our current registered membership, like paid up membership, is about 260. So 260 people.
Fairly sizable.
Yeah, that's respectable.
Yeah, exactly.
And now,
do you do the same format for every meeting, or is there something a little bit different?
No, pretty much every meeting follows that particular format. And we'll vary some things up from time to time, but it's pretty reliable that it's going to be Drew gets up and babbles for about an hour while serving beer, and then everybody else gets a chance to babble while serving their beer. And in the meanwhile, we try and do some real work in the middle where it's like, hey, we're going to do this bus trip to all these different breweries who's in. And by the way, we need kegs of beer because we have the Southern California Homebrewers Festival coming up.
Well, you mentioned you had the coveted title of Grand Hydrometer, which is, as you mentioned, the Chief of Education and Training. So what kind of education training can you get, say, from an average homebrew club?
Depends. Good thing is, at least for the Falcons, we have a couple different opportunities for you to learn. The basic example that we do is once a month, we do what we call our Brew 101 class. And that is a class that is devoted to, here's a basic homebrew kit. Extract, grains, and kind of standard homebrewing gear. Now, how do you go and turn that into beer, right? So it's really, I have never done this before, or I'm uncomfortable doing this myself. So we're going to show you how to do that. Next level up is we do our monthly, what we call shop brews, and we have a 31 barrel all grain system built in the back of our shop.
Wow.
Yeah, it's awesome. But we'll get together and, 6 or 7 guys will, show up at 8 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, sit down, do all the work, brew all day, drink a little bit of beer, a little bit, and then we'll move on from there, and everybody gets to take home a portion of beer for kind of a discounted rate. And the whole idea is we'll teach you how to do all grain brewing, but at the same time, we do a lot of fun stuff like, hey, let's do something wacky, right? Let's try and play around with some flavors, or at least those are the ones I do. So back in January, I did a shop brew that was all about an oatmeal cookie ale. And it was a toasted oat ale that had raisins in it. Mm-hmm. And the whole idea was, well, let's see if we can't actually make a beer that tastes like an oatmeal cookie.
How'd it come out?
It came out awesome.
It was really good.
I actually had the first sip of it last weekend when a guy brought his version onto our bus tour. Mm-hmm. And he's like, I don't know, does this taste right to you? Pours me a glass of it. I'm like, holy shit, I did it.
So how do you go about making oatmeal cookie beer?
A lot of maris otter, a lot of toasted flake oats that you toast in the oven, and then raisins soaked in spiced rum.
Oh wow! Yeah.
You throw the raisins into the boil. Hold the rum off to the side. If you're like us, you drink the rum, and then you make a nice little cinnamon extract at home, and then you dose the beer when it goes into the keg with the cinnamon extract. And that actually kind of pulls all these flavors together, and you get like a little vanilla, you get a little sweetness, you get the rum, you get the cinnamon, and you get this toasted oaty flavor, and it's just spot on. And it was one of these things where I had it as a thought experiment in my head, and I went, that would be good, I think. And then we actually made it a practical reality, and that's when I was just kind of like, holy shit, it worked. Nice. But so those are the two things that we do outside of the meetings. In the meeting itself, the Grand Hydrometer presentation, it's always some sort of beer theme, right?
Okay.
So, for instance, I mentioned I'm doing one at our next meeting here.
Yeah.
And I'm telling everybody, since it's going to be on April Fool's Day, that the tasting is beer mistakes that never should have been made.
I've had a few of those over the years there, Drew.
Yeah, well, and so, starring Bud Light Platinum, and things like that. But in reality, the tasting is going to be anniversary beers. Look at like different things that different breweries have done to celebrate their anniversaries.
Cool.
So this is one of the other things I like to do. I'm a little bit of a smartass, so I'll play a lot of jokes on people. But then after we're done doing that tasting, which is going to be about 4 or 5 beers, and we'll have a little tech presentation. And in this case, I think this month's is actually, I don't know if you've seen, but in the news recently or on the boards, people are talking about this whole idea of like, let's do French presses full of hops on their beer. Yeah, so it's like, hey, fill a French press with a whole bunch of hops, fill it with beer, and then press it down, right? So we're actually going to take a nice, inoffensive blonde ale, serve that out to everybody, and then serve it via a French press with hops, so that everybody can kind of get the sense of what's different about that.
Now, are you doing the French press? Where in the brewing process are you using that?
Oh no, this is a thing that a couple of brew pubs have started doing as a service option.
As a service, so you offer it. You sort of mix the hops in at the end there to get the aroma, I guess.
Yeah, so like
hop tea, I guess.
Well, yeah, except for just soaked directly in the beer. So you'll see online there are a couple of brew pubs now that they have French presses they'll bring to the table.
Oh, really?
Yeah, filled with whole leaf hops, and you put in something on top of it, and oh, hey, look, press it down, and I've got hoppy beer.
Pretty neat.
Yeah, and actually, shockingly, it's not the first time I've seen an idea close to that. Years ago, I was hanging out at O'Brien's in San Diego, and Greg from Stone showed up there. Mm-hmm. And this was about the first time when the Randalls came on the market. And he went next door to a Chinese herb and tea shop and picked up a tea ball and dunked that in his beer, nice. In kind of a way of playing and also joking on the idea of a Randall.
Interesting. So what are some of the other things? One of the other things clubs get into, I guess, is competition. What are some of the competitions you might participate in? How big a role does that play in the clubs?
That always depends upon the club, right? For years, I tried to get the Falcons to compete more in competitions around the country before I kind of realized that really wasn't the nature of our club.
Yeah.
But we do still actually try and make an effort to get entries into all the club-only competitions that are run by the AHA. So those are the competitions where the AHA announces a style for a 2-month period, and you send in an example of that style, one per club, and whoever wins gets points to the Club of the Year award, right? And so we use that as an opportunity to do some education with the club. Tell them, okay, well, here we're going to do stouts, and then everybody's got a stout that they want into the competition, bring it to the club meeting. You get to serve it to the club membership, and in the meanwhile, a panel of judges will go off to the side, and they'll taste everything and decide who should go forward. So that's one thing that we do. We also do, I'm trying to remember, I think we do 3 main competitions per year ourselves. We do the Doug King Memorial Competition, which is all about lager beers and specialties. We have the Mayfair, which is possibly the oldest in the country.
Really?
Yeah.
How old is it?
We were founded in 1974, and I believe the first time I've seen mention of the Mayfair in records is 1977.
Wow.
So I haven't really seen anything older. So tentatively, I'm saying it's the oldest competition in the country. Mm-hmm. And then we also do the LA County Fair. So, I mean, for a club that doesn't actually tend to compete a lot, we have a number of competitions that we do.
Yeah. That's great.
So, hey.
So, I mean, if somebody wants to join, they don't necessarily have to compete, right? I mean, you got the option. I know, some people are pro competition, some people are really not into it.
Yeah. I mean, for instance, I love the idea of competitions, but again, we go onto the lazy factor.
Yeah.
So I have a real hard time psyching up the energy to go and bottle and prepare labels and ship and all that sort of fun stuff. But yeah, to me, it's important to have the opportunity. And I think actually also learning how to run a competition is an important educational opportunity. But yeah, I mean, if you want to be a member of the club and you want to be a successful member of the club, the only thing you got to do is show up and have fun. and be willing to help out. You're far more successful if you're willing to sweep the floor.
Yeah. Now, one question I get a lot is, you have any advice for people who do like to compete? I know a lot of people looking to enter their first competition. They get real nervous and not sure what to expect. I was wondering if you had some advice.
I think the biggest piece of advice I can give to anybody who's going to join a competition or enter a competition for the first time is don't get hung up on what you thought you brewed, right? Enter what you actually ended up with. So I see guys ask questions online all the time about, hey, I was going to go make this saison, but it ended up being too sweet, so it's kind of more like it's a Belgian specialty ale. What should I enter in? And my response to that question is always, well, what does the beer taste like? If the beer to you tastes like a Belgian specialty ale, then enter it as a Belgian specialty ale. Because no judge out there is ever going to know what your recipe is.
Yeah, exactly.
They're only going to know what's in front of them. And if you enter something that you intended to be a saison as a saison, but it ended up being a Belgian golden, then you're going to get dinged on it, and you're not really going to get the appropriate sort of feedback.
Sounds good. No, I agree. Well, a couple other questions I had. How do you go about finding the local homebrew club in your area? What's the quickest way to find them?
2 ways. One, ask at your local homebrew shop. If you have a local homebrew shop, inevitably there will be a club attached to it. It turns out there's a really good symbiotic relationship between clubs and host shops. The other way is if you don't have a local homebrew shop, or your local homebrew shop is way, 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 way away. The other great place to check is actually at the HA, the American Homebrewers Association. Mm-hmm. They actually have a club locator service online that will tell you the nearest registered clubs to you. And then, assuming that you're one of the unfortunate people who lives nowhere near a club, nowhere near a homebrew shop, they also have the ability. They have online all the articles that you would need to know about how to go make your own homebrew club.
Oh, cool! I didn't even know that.
Yeah, it's a good thing. Obviously I'm biased, but I think the homebrew clubs are handy.
Now, what about the homebrew shops? You mentioned that you meet at a homebrew shop, and so I was kind of getting into what role do they play in sort of working with the clubs and sponsoring the clubs, and a lot of them, I guess, directly sponsor the clubs. Yeah,
well, I'll tell you, I think part of the reason the Falcons have managed to last for, what are we on, 37 years now, almost 38, is because of our relationship with our shop. John Don-May, who's owned and run the Home Beer Wine Cheesemaking Shop since like 1972, is a big supporter of the club. He goes out of his way. He does things like annual grain buy offers for the club so that we can get some extra, brewing activity going. He actually does the discounted stuff that we do for our shop brews. He's constantly giving the club resources, and there's probably no bigger resource that he's ever given us than the fact that we have a clubhouse in the back of his shop. So where he could have extra inventory space, we actually have a classroom that we use for our club meetings.
Very cool.
So, yeah. So club members get a discount, mm-hmm. which is great because, hey, cheaper brewing ingredients. But the other thing that's also great is that it attracts extra members into the club, because you'll get people who may not necessarily be like, oh, well, I don't really want to join a club. I'm not really a joiner. But they go, but I can get 10% off at the shop. Yeah. And so they'll join. And if they never show up at club meeting, okay, well, thank you. We appreciate your $25. You just went and paid for us to have some more fun. And two, it's like, well, hey, you're a member. Come on, stop on by and take advantage of some of the money that you give us.
So how are the clubs organized sort of at the regional, national level? Obviously, a lot of them are, tied directly back to the AHA. How does that work?
It's kind of funny. It's not actually all that a hard tie, right? Most of the time, if you think like, oh, you're tied to an organization, it's like you're paying dues to this organization, right? You owe money, You have obligations. With the HA, there isn't really anything like that. In order to be a registered club, it's, you go online, you fill out a little bit of paperwork, and you kind of basically, cross your heart and promise that you'll be devoted to the idea of teaching people how to homebrew and further the hobby. And otherwise, that's pretty much it for DHA, in terms of what they expect out of you. Now, the good thing is that clubs get benefits out of it. Obviously you have the HA who's up there representing you, doing the law stuff, sitting there to help you out whenever things come up, like, for instance, what happened last year in Oregon when Oregon homebrewers could no longer move beer out of their house.
Oh, really?
Because,
tell me that story. I don't think a lot of people may have heard that story. I heard it last year at the conference, but
so about a year ago, somebody in the Oregon Liquor Control Commission, the OLC, went back through the law and was, going, what do we have here on our books? And at least the way I've always heard the story told, became horrified by the fact that they realized that the laws as were written on the books, the things that the OLC actually had to enforce, made it very clear that you could not take homebrew out of your house, which meant that club meetings couldn't happen, and it meant that competitions couldn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
So for 6, 7, 8 months, all that activity was suspended in Oregon, while a couple of the Oregon clubs and the HA worked with the Oregon Liquor Commission and worked with the Oregon legislature to get a law passed that changed that and made it now possible that you can go back to doing things that, like, they've been doing for the past 30 years.
Yeah, exactly.
I can just imagine the bureaucrat who went, "Hey, wait a tick."
Well, there's a lot of old laws on the books, I guess, but yeah. So what's other than that, what are some of the things that I know you're active in the AHA? What are some of the other things the AHA does for us?
Well,
at the national level.
Surprisingly, I think the biggest one is they really do sit there to be sort of legal watch eyes. Kind of they jump into the fray. Right now, I know two of the biggest efforts that are still left are trying to get the last two states in the union where homebrewing is illegal to legalize, and that's Alabama and Mississippi.
Yep.
We got Utah last year, so yay. And so that's probably the biggest thing. The other thing is, like, again, with Oregon, and then obviously kind of providing an umbrella organization, running things like the AHA Forum, putting out Zymergy, putting on the National Homebrewers Conference.
Yeah.
Kind of, like all these big things that we as homebrewers kind of go, oh yeah, those are great.
Yeah, we were talking about it before the show. I guess the homebrewing conference this year sold out in 38 hours?
Yeah, 38 hours.
Wow. So I think they were telling me 1,600 people, something like that, in 38 hours signed up.
Yeah, it's about 1,600, and I know they're stressing and trying to find a way to get the people who are on the waiting list in.
Wow. That's pretty amazing. Well, I'm going to be there. I'm looking forward to seeing you there as well. Should be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
So, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, well, no, I was going to say, and of course, I can never leave things well enough alone. So the Falcons are going to be pouring beer there, and I'm going to be giving a talk. Actually, two.
Yeah, I'm speaking as well. Looking forward to it.
Look at that.
Should be a lot of
fun.
And you guys can compete for the what's the award that you compete for each year? The homebrewing clubs compete for?
What, a club night?
The club night,
gold, yeah. The Pissoir d'Or, the Golden Urinal.
The Golden Urinal, that's it.
Yeah, we are not going to be going for the Pissoir d'Or this year, since we do have to transport our kegs all the way up from LA.
I see.
Although I can promise that, barring malfeasance on my part, we will have a really cool and really, really spectacular piece to our club night booth.
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. So we kind of covered things at the local level. We covered things a little bit at the national level.
State level.
State level. If you want to say anything at state level, go ahead.
Yeah. A new trend recently, and something I think that we're going to try and encourage more of the formation of, is the idea of a state homebrew guilds.
Interesting.
For instance, virtually every state now has a small beer or small brewers guild, right? Devoted to the cause of craft brewers. So one of the things we'd like to see happen is the same thing for homebrewers. Washington, where the conference is going to be this year, has a great example of that in Waha. California actually has two. We have one for Northern California and Southern California, because Northern California and Southern California are really kind of two separate states anyway. So, and I was speaking from my own experience, the Southern California version, which is called the California Homebrewers Association, its main function is it actually puts on the Southern California Homebrewers Festival every year. So we're still trying to kind of mesh together the idea of what a state group will do. But in a lot of ways, you can kind of consider it to be a lot of the same things that the HA does, with just a more local flavor.
Right. I mean, somebody can focus on, say, state legislation for your particular state. I assume representing the homebrewers to various forms, right?
Yeah, providing expertise, doing educational events so that people don't think that homebrewers are really just more bootleggers.
Which we're not. It's legal in, as you mentioned, 48 of the 50 states now.
Come on, 49.
Yeah, we're trying. Mississippi and Alabama, huh?
Yeah, Mississippi and Alabama.
So anyway, let's say I'm a homebrewer just starting out, and perhaps I've been brewing for maybe a couple months, a couple years on my own. What would your pitch be to convince me to go to the first homebrew club meeting?
First pitch is free beer.
Hard to beat that.
Yeah. Free cold beer, the most awesome substance known to mankind.
Yes.
And I think looking back at some of the stuff we were talking about earlier, it's also a chance to really kind of be around people with your own sort of obsession, right? And this is kind of a pretty accepting community for oddity. They understand the idea that not everybody's into, talking about beer for 900 hours. But they're all perfectly willing to do the same thing.
They're not?
Yeah, apparently from what I understand, most people really don't care that much.
That's what I do for a living.
I know, it horrifies me. I'm surprised. My coworkers look at me and go, dude, shut up. So I would say definitely it's the free beer. It's the people. And really importantly about the fact that these are all people who, more than likely, any crazy, stupid, annoying idea that you've come up with, they've probably already thought of, and they've probably already done. I mean, I know part of my reputation in the homebrew world is kind of being the guy who does wacky things like oatmeal cookie yells. But I swear, the number of times I've come up with ideas and I've looked at people around the Falcons and gone, hey, so, I had this really great idea to incorporate avocado into my beer. And I'll hear from somebody, oh, yeah, I did that back in 93. And let me see what I remember about that. Da, 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 da. And it's like, really? Thank you. Damn it.
I don't think avocado's a good choice myself, but...
Well, it depends. I would say avocado, not so much. Avocado honey, yes. So yeah, to me, the biggest thing about the homebrew thing is just that thing. You get a sounding board, and it's a knowledgeable sounding board.
No, I mean that can be tremendously useful. Now, Drew, you were the president of the Maltose Falcons for, I believe, about 4 years. What are some of the things you learned along the way?
Oh God, homebrewers are difficult to control.
Like herding cats.
Yeah, in fact, there was a Modern Marvel episode shot while I was president, and they came by the club and they talked with us for a while, and it was about craft breweries, or I think just breweries. Mm-hmm. And at one point, there's a brief shot of me leading a Falcons meeting, and the announcer does say something along the lines of, and here's Drew Beechum orchestrating the controlled chaos of a Maltose Falcons meeting, and it's pretty true. It is kind of chaos. But at the same time, it's not that it's just chaos, but it's that I've never really found a group of people willing to have as much fun, and also willing to put in as much work as it takes to have that much fun. We've got guys in the club who, they build bars for us, they provide us free equipment, They lug all this stuff every time we go anywhere to go to a festival. We got other guys who jump in and lead shop brews, and people who volunteer to be on the board, and people who never even think of even actually taking a position that has that much public recognition, and just, oh, here, I'll sweep, no problem. Guys who are always bringing beer, people who are just people who are kind of dedicated to the idea that it takes hard work to have fun. And as a homebrew president, or even as a club leader, it's incredibly important to foster that. Mm-hmm. So, it's a delicate dance, right? There are going to be a lot of lazy people who just want to do the
bare minimum.
That part of the aspect of the hobby, drink the beer. So you really have to find the people who want to do work, or the people who are willing to do work, and cultivate in such a way that they understand that it's appreciated. But otherwise, I think the other thing is that you come to realize that everybody has kind of slightly different interests in what they want to see in the hobby, and so you kind of have to learn to juggle that, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a reason why there are all these different clubs out there, and they all have different personalities. And some people are about competition, some people aren't. Some people are about partying, some people are about brewing, some people are about building weird, wacky gadgets, and some aren't. And so you kind of have to find the best synergistic use of all those interests in your club, so that it can define the personality.
Now, you mentioned different clubs sometimes have different personalities too. What if you got an option? Maybe there's a couple clubs in your area if you live in a big city or something like that. What would you suggest? Go try them all?
Yeah, I'd say go try them all. I mean, it's not really going to cost you anything. I mean, in most clubs, I don't think I've ever encountered a club that has a bouncer at the door going, "Excuse me, sir, are you a member?" So most of them, as long as you're not being a serious mooch, are going to be like, "Hey, come on in and have a beer or have some fun. This is what we're doing. We'll get together. We'll have a few laughs." And then if you do that, you can kind of wander around for a little bit. And you can find a club that has the appropriate personality for you, and then stick by those folks until you need a club with a different personality. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I think it's very important to explore your options that way. And I'll give you a great example here in LA. We've probably got about, not including the Bay Areas down in the south, we have about 4 or 5 clubs up in my neck of the woods. Wow. And to this day, I'm still a Falcon. And part of that's loyalty, and part of it's also just that's the club that does the stuff that I want to do. So
Drew,
definitely
ahead.
Explore. Definitely explore.
Well, Drew, we're coming near the end here, but is there anything else you'd like to add? Anything we may have missed or want to cover?
Yeah, actually, there is one thing.
Yeah,
one thing I totally forgot about. It goes back to the idea of why you should want to join a club. I've seen this story more times than I care to admit. You'll get 2 guys going into a homebrew shop, and 2 best friends, and they go in and they go, "Hey, man, let's buy this beer kit. Dude, we're going to make awesome beer. This is going to rock. All right, let's go buy the beer kit." And they go buy the beer kit. They make the beer. Awesome beer, dude. And then, come back, they buy another kit. And then by the 3rd kit that's rolling around, one of the 2 is petering out going, "Man, we've already done this tonight. Let's go do something else." And, the one guy is just super obsessed, right?
Yeah, passionate.
Now, here's the thing. As your buddy's passion is waning, it's very, very easy to lose it, right? It's very easy. Oh, okay, you're right, man. So what's great about a homebrew club is that a homebrew club serves as sort of the hook and crack cocaine of the homebrewing world. As your buddies are all fading out and you're still interested, that homebrew club will give you a reason to stay interested. Mm-hmm. And so, very, very important. Unless you don't want to be a homebrewer for life.
No, I've seen that myself. I've seen people, tend to come in and out of the hobby, and some of that's life driven, and that's understandable. People have different interests, but I'm surprised how many people eventually come back to it.
Yeah, why not? It's a great hobby.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And look, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. You can only build so many birdhouses, before you run out of need of birdhouses. But you can keep making beer.
Absolutely. Well, Drew, I really appreciate you being on the show again. Thanks for being here.
Hey, glad to be here.
It's great to have Drew on the show. Again, that was Drew Beechum. He's the author of the Everything Homebrewing book, and he's also an author for Beer Advocate. Well, I'd like to thank Drew Beechum for coming on the show. Really appreciate him being here. I'd like to ask if you have any feedback for the show. You can go to beersmith.com/forum, the discussion forum, and leave a message under this particular episode, or you can go to beersmith.com/blog, where you can also find all of our episodes of the podcast so far. There's 36 of them now. Download those, or you can leave a comment on this particular episode. I'd like to thank you for listening, and I hope you have a great brewing week.